gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Welcome to Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Jeff, where music melts your mind. That's the new slogan. Remember that. So, listen, guys, today is kind of a special day. Got a really old dear friend of mine coming on. I've known this guy for 22 years. It's not an exaggeration to say he's truly one of the nicest guys in the music biz, a great guitar player, possibly even a better singer, which many people don't really know about unless they know his solo material. He's most popularly known for his 8-year stint with progressive rock band Porcupine Tree, as well as the backing vocalist and guitarist for the band during the most popular period prior to their disbanding in 2010. He has also written and played with the ex-Marillion lead singer Fish, who he also wrote an album with. He was in Sound of Contact with Dave Kersner and Simon Collins, who is Phil Collins' son. He's been the quintessential journeyman side guitar man with stints in Sister Hazel with Mike Tramp, one with Big Elf we're going to talk about that he probably forgets about. Maybe he doesn't, who was with Mike Portnoy at that point in time. He's owned and operated a small recording studio for many years in the Tampa area called Red Room Recorders. He's even been a guitar tech for Steve Rothery of Marillion. Please welcome Mr. John Wesley, or as his friends and fans call him, Wes. What's up, man?
Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
Good to see you, bud. Yeah, man, for sure. This is actually, I started doing this in March of 22, and my first interview was Dan Mongrain from Voivod.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and I was kind of like, man, I don't know, it really nerved me out. I was like, every time I'd get ready to do one of these, I'd be so nervous. I'd be like, man, it's not even worth doing this. I don't want to do this. But I persevered, and now I'm very comfortable with it. It's very cool. But I had asked way back in May of 22 to come on, and you weren't in a good space at that point in time, which is totally cool. But we got you here now. Better late than never, right?
Yeah.
But it's great to see you. And there was a time, Wes, when you saw a lot of me, man. Probably way, way, way too much of me.
Can we ever see too much, Jeff?
Could anyone ever? That's the way. That's what I like to hear. There was a time, though, about 20 years ago, 15 years ago or so, where I'm sure.
I mean, you got to look at it from my perspective. I always felt, anchored and comforted when I saw my friends. So when they would show up at a gig, it was, there was never too much.
Right.
It was like, okay, we're solid tonight. We've got our people here. Some of our people are here, So for me, that's the way that always works. So
awesome. I had a funny joke there. I was going to say, when you woke up in the morning in Virginia somewhere at a road stop or something, the first thing you probably did was look out
see if Jeff was out there. Yeah,
Jeff was out there hiding somewhere. So. but yeah, it was. Dude, we had a lot of good times, man. We really did.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of ancient history, but a good part of history, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess where I kind of want to start, and you had sent me a video that you did for, I don't know is he your boss or your friend? I don't know the story there.
Scott, I work with Scott. Scott's a retired ex-Green Beret. He was a Green Beret for 18 years and in the military for 23.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a leadership training company and a 501c3 that helps veterans. And then we also, he wrote a play and I helped him stand up that play. And he's got a couple of books. He wrote a bestseller, a New York Times bestseller about evacuating people out of Afghanistan when the airport fell.
Right.
When Abbey Gate blew up and all that kind of stuff, we were intimately involved in getting out Afghani special forces members that weren't on the list. So we were actually taking them through a 4-foot hole in the fence, and a couple guys from the 82nd Airborne were there on the other side, getting him in and then getting him out. And
Wow.
And it's a great book. It reads like an adventure story. It's a book called Operation Pineapple Express. And Scott was driving that whole thing, and I was part of his support team, as well as my daughter, Jamie. Jamie was too.
Right. And so you sent me a link to a video that you did. I guess it's posted out on
it's
YouTube.
on.
And I don't know if you want me to, I can link it in the description.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful interview. So
yeah, it's a good interview. And so unfortunately, Scott stole a lot of my thunder, but it's okay. I'll
because this is a new audience, so they wouldn't have seen or heard or any of that, you know.
True. Plus we have some more stories.
We do.
The crazy nights in San Francisco at the bus walking around. Okay, maybe some of that stuff should remain behind closed doors, but there may be legal ramifications. Who knows? But let's start in the beginning, Wes. So you're a couple years older than me, and you grew up in the Tampa, Bradenton, Sarasota area, right? And tell us a little bit about. I generally ask this first of my guests because I think it really kind of is a table setter for as far as you becoming a musician. I'm curious to know what your first memories of music were, and I think I know where you're going to go because I watched that interview. But kind of give me some instances of things that stick out as a young child that you heard that were like, wow, it just gravitated towards it. And maybe some specific instances of things like family trips or going somewhere special that you remember a song on the radio or something like that.
Yeah. And there's several, like, I can't remember what I said in Scott's interview, but like one that comes to mind right now is I went to a Catholic church, you know, and I was an altar boy, and then I started taking guitar lessons, and within 3 months of taking guitar lessons, the priest had roped me into playing the Friday kids mass. And they had a carnival twice a year, and I'll never forget walking through that carnival midway. My dad would always work it, so I'd spend a lot of time there, and hearing over the loudspeakers this really unbelievable guitar riff and this crazy echo vocal, and it was Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress.
The Hollies. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's a killer riff, man.
Oh my God. I'm like, you know, and so it just was like, oh my God, I want that, you know?
Yeah.
And then at another carnival, they had this local band, but to me, they were rock stars. And this guy was wearing a white t-shirt. He had Sharpied on the back, or marker. I don't think they had Sharpies back then, but he had magic markered on the back. Amit was the name of the band, you know, Amit.
Oh, really?
I went up to him. I said, "Hey, Mr. Amit, I really love what you're doing." And I just, when they were playing all the classic 70s stuff, man. And it was just like, I want to do this, you know? So,
well, so did you grow up in a musical household?
My mom played piano and sang, but we didn't have like, you know, FM radio. We didn't have good FM radio. All that, you know, we only had AM. And we had one of those big consoles, and all the albums in the consoles were all like Andy Williams and not even like really intensely good stuff like Frank Sinatra. But it was, you know, it was kind of like the cheaper end of the crooner side, you know, and, you know, so my musical exposure was church music and that, you know, until I was a little older. Probably when I was about 9 or 10 or maybe 11, I went to a garage sale, and there were 3 albums that were just crazy looking, and it was Cream, and they were for like 25 cents each. And so I bought Disraeli Gear's Fresh Cream and Goodbye Cream.
Wow.
And that was like, that just blew up everything. And then I got on, you remember we used to be able to get like 12 records for 99 cents?
The Columbia House thing, yeah. Yep.
Started doing that, and then one of the records that came was a Clapton Greatest Hits. And I heard Layla for the first time, and I heard Bell Bottom Blues for the first time, and I was just crushed, you know. So that was kind of that. And then there was an Elton John song called Benny and the Jets.
Dude.
Resonated, man. Oh, God.
I don't think people, you know, young people don't get, they probably don't even know who the hell Elton John is. But for you and me in the 70s, man, that Elton was the fucking rock star, dude. He was the guy.
Wow.
And, you know, the funny thing is a lot of people think of him as a piano guy, But man, Davy Johnstone, man,
Davy
what a
Johnstone,
killer player.
Black Les Paul, and it was just like,
3 pickups. He had the Black Beauty, right?
oh, he did, yeah.
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 I mean, you want a killer guitar song from Elton John? Look no further than Love Lies Bleeding. That song will kick your ass.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it started. And then I started taking guitar lessons at 12, right before my 13th birthday. And
but if I can interject for a second, but
Sure.
I remember you
Mhm.
saying that you took piano. When did you start the piano, and how long did you
Just
stick
before
with it?
that, I took piano for about 8 months while I was 12. And it was this crazy old woman that was really not nice. And so that didn't last. It lasted about 8 months. And then the guy down the street was giving guitar lessons. He was the brother of a friend. And he was this older guy, and he had grown up in the Jacksonville scene. So he had been around Skinnerd and actually played in the Allman Joys with the Allman Brothers when it was early days when they were kids.
Wow.
He actually played in this band they called the Allman Joys.
Yeah, yeah.
And, so at that point, he'd gotten into some shit, and he had crash landed down the street from me, and he was a monster, man. You know, so that was my first couple of years of guitar lessons with him.
What was your first guitar? Do you remember what it was?
Oh yeah, it was a little red K. Do you remember those guitars? Ks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sears, I think Sears catalog type guitars,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
It was terrible, and the action was about a foot off the fretboard, but you know, that typical story.
Mine was a Stella.
Oh yeah, I remember
Stella. It was a Tobacco Burst, and I got that at 8, and then I discovered Kiss, and it was all over. And then it was
my big ones,
yeah, and then it was standing in front of the mirror pretending I was Paul Stanley, and all the chicks were gonna come. Yeah, it was great, man. So you're growing up in that area down there, and you mentioned Skinnerd. Very fertile area down there, Macon, Georgia. Jacksonville, obviously Skinnerd. I think Macon was Almonds, right?
No, they came out of the Jacksonville area and ended up.
They did?
Yeah, they grew up, and I may be wrong in this, but Jacksonville was kind of like the hub, and then they migrated to Macon, I think, a little bit as they aged, because they traveled a lot. Like Dwayne ended up in LA for a while, they ended up back in Jacksonville, and then back in Macon. So it was but they were part of that whole Jacksonville scene.
Molly Hatchet too, I guess, right?
Molly Hatchet, yeah. And actually, the Outlaws were Tampa, because we were about 3 hours south of Jacksonville.
Right.
And that was a long way. And so around here, the local legends were White Witch. I don't know if you remember White Witch.
Yeah.
White Witch and the Outlaws.
Okay. Yeah, and Jacksonville is on the East Coast, and Tampa's on. You got to go across the peninsula. So, so you're 12 when you pick up a guitar. You start bashing around on an old acoustic. When did the electric come into the scene? And what was your first electric guitar?
Probably about a year later, 14, and it was a friend of mine down the street had a custom amp with the looked like the couch, and a big tall thing with 3 12s in it and a big head. And then he had one of these, which I just bought recently because it's almost exactly what I had.
Wow.
As my guitar. This is a 1961 ES 125.
ES 125. Okay. Yeah. Look at that thing, man.
And
semi-hollow
shop about 3 months ago, and it was semi-hollow, and it was sitting there, and I'm like, that's an exact replica of my first electric guitar. I have to have it.
Same color?
Same color. Yeah.
Wow. You got that local shop or on?
Yeah, Replay Music. Yeah.
Nice, man.
I went there to get a set of strings and came home with a 1961 ES 125.
I'm sure Becca was happy about that.
She was not happy. She was not happy.
What wives of
musicians just went for strings?
Yeah, exactly. Wives of guitar players. They either they either understand it or you're divorced fairly quickly. I mean, that's usually how it works. Right?
She's very, very kind and understanding and does her best to reel me in. But she got it. She's like, I get it. So.
Yeah. So you're in high school, junior high then when you get the electric and
then I played that for about another year, maybe 2 years, and then Thoroughbred Music had opened in Tampa, and Thoroughbred was one of the first music stores that ever traded in used instruments and actually made it a thing. It was like, we'll bring your used stuff to us. We'll always work a good trade in with you. And Elliot Rubenstein, who owned Thoroughbred, had figured out the formula, and he made Thoroughbred legendary.
Okay.
And so in 1977, I walked in there and I bought a beautiful Cherry Sunburst Les Paul. I traded that in and probably $150 and got this beautiful Cherry Sunburst Les Paul, which I played all the way through high school.
What year was that one?
That one would have been a 70,
Okay.
71, something like that. Yeah.
Still a good bunch of years there, man. The 70s.
Oh, yeah.
70s were always pretty good.
It was a great guitar. And then I traded that for a brand new Tobacco Burst after I got out of high school. So
wow. So you're 15 about when you grabbed that?
Yep.
I guess roughly.
Yep.
So you're just in high school, probably 9th grade, 10th grade, maybe, or something.
Yes, 10th grade. And
are you connecting with dudes at school, and are you doing any jamming at that point? Run us through that thing.
Put together a little band in my sophomore, junior year with a couple of guys around town, and we were playing. And thank you for All the World's a Stage. I appreciate that, man. Awesome. Shiver, great record.
Issa's here, by the way.
Oh, hello, Issa. How are you?
Issa's been following me the last couple of streams because I'm bringing on people she loves. So there you go.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, she is.
So yeah, I mean, and then my dad helped me buy this Marshall half stack, this beige. It was the fawn colored Marshall, and that was 1977 as well. So that year I really pulled my rig together and was playing in a little band and played in that band all the way through high school, And then
doing covers mainly.
Oh, yeah. We were trying to write songs, but we weren't very good at it. And so we learned a few covers, and we did some ice cream parlor gigs, pizza parlor stuff.
Do you remember some of the tracks you did? Some of the songs you did?
Yeah, "Fooling Yourself" by Styx.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Probably "Sweet Home Alabama."
Any Boston in there? Any Boston?
No, we couldn't
Go too advanced.
Yeah, that was
sonically,
tough. Oh my God, they were. But yeah, so we did some stuff like that, and then at the end of high school, a couple of guys in the band migrated to a different kind of a new wave kind of thing, and then I met Paul and Mark Prater and auditioned for them. When will I be back to Europe? That's a good question. Never soon enough.
It's a good friend of mine, Tom, too. This guy, Tom's a killer guitar player. He's in Spirit Adrift.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Yeah, Tom's a good buddy.
I played Floyd in my high school bands. I played Floyd after I got out of high school. When I started playing with Mark and Paul, we got into Rush and Pink Floyd. As a matter of fact, I tell the story how Rush, Xanadu was my audition song for the brothers. Mark was on drums, Paul was on keyboards, and we did a whacked version of Xanadu. So.
And you and Mark went to school together, right? High school?
Yeah. Me, Mark, and Paul.
Same age, same.
He was 2 years younger. Yeah, I was 18. He was 16.
And how about his brother?
He was 17. So
okay,
16,
so
17, 18.
And that was the three pillars of your first real band, Autodrive, which
lasted until 92.
Yeah. So when did you get people can look up your birth years, so it's not like we're aging you. And what year did you graduate high school? Then you were around 80, right? 80. Okay. So was Autodrive already well underway at that point by the time you graduated?
We started it. Yeah.
In 80.
Yeah. As I was graduating.
How'd that all come together then? You had three pillars. Where'd you come up with guitar? You had another guitar? No, you had a bass player.
We had a bass player. Yeah, we met a guy named Paul McGregor, and I forget how we met Paul. But he was a little older, and he was from Michigan, and he was really into the progressive rock scene out of Michigan. And he was into Genesis and Steve Hackett and Peter Gabriel and Yes. And he kind of opened the door for us kind of that year, in my 18th year, to all of that progressive rock, because I'd only ever heard a little bit of Pink Floyd on the radio and some Rush. I was a Rush freak by then. I was a Rush freak at 15.
I was just going to ask you, when did you discover Rush? What was your discovery point?
Discovery point was 2112.
Okay.
Some kids in ninth grade, so I might have been 14. Some kids in ninth grade had it. And it was really hard to buy records back then. You know, the family didn't have a lot of money, and
Sure.
so I had to mow lawns and buy records. And I was buying guitars, so you know, I bought very few things that I couldn't get off Columbia for a penny. And
It was a good deal. It was
yeah, a great deal.
Yeah.
And so 2112, All the World's a Stage blew my mind. And then after All the World's a Stage, Farewell to Kings came out, and that did my head in, you know.
Yeah, you were slightly ahead of me because you're a few years older than me. I'll be 58 next month, so I mean, I would have been like a freshman when you were graduating. Sure. And you know, for me, Kiss was the thing. It was the drug that got me.
It was my initial hit. I used to dress up like him and everything.
I never actually did that. But what I did do, we lived in Houston, Texas. And when my parents were at work, I would take the old, you know, and you'll remember this, the all-in-one stereos. You know, they had the 8-track and it probably didn't even have a cassette. It was probably 8-track and a turntable and a FM stereo. And I'd take the speakers, put them we lived in ranchers, so I'd put them in the front windows. I'd climb up on the roof since it was just one story. And we had, I don't know about in Florida whether they had this or not, but we had those old cedar shake roofs, like cedar type, not asphalt, weirdly. Major fire hazard now, I would think. But I'd climb up there, I'd crank Rock and Roll Over or Kiss Alive or Love Gun, and I'd be up there with my guitar, and all the neighborhood. I lived on a cul-de-sac with all young girls that were in and around my age or right a little bit younger, and I'd be the dude. That was my big rock star moment. It never went that much further than that. But
yeah, my first concert was the Destroyer tour.
Okay, so that's when you saw. I was going to ask what your first show was. It was Kiss.
Yeah.
Mine was Dynasty, so I was 3 years behind you. Yeah, but then my second was Rush. So when did you get to see Rush finally?
I didn't get to see Rush till my senior year, or just after my senior year. So probably 81.
Permanent Waves or Moving Pictures? Moving Pictures.
That Hemispheres.
Well, that would have been 78.
Was it?
Yeah, 78. Yeah,
that's the tour I saw.
And that was the first. That was my first album that I bought by them. Still my favorite album. I love Farewell to Kings, but like Hemispheres is the apex predator amongst all albums for me. It's my favorite album of all time.
I'm definitely stuck in Farewell to Kings, but Hemispheres is a close second. So yeah, so that was the first Rush tour I saw.
All the World's a Stage showing us both up. He saw Rush in 70. You always got to have one of those guys. You win. There you go. You win. So you're okay. So you started Autodrive, and this is 1980. And are you actually hitting the clubs? Because some of your guys are younger than. Okay.
No, but you know what? There was you could play skating rinks. It's funny. We were playing. We did a couple shows like in a field at USF, and we could play the. There was a place at USF you could play. And we played a concert out there with this other band, this super heavy metal band called Avatar.
Ah, yes. The Oliva Brothers.
The Oliva Brothers.
Yes.
And, you know, and obviously they were different than us, but amazing. And we did a couple shows with them. We did a skating rink with them. We did
No way.
Oh, yeah. We did yeah, because we all came up through the same era, you know, obviously because they're super metal. We went to progressive rock.
Right, and you can see there, behind me, that band right there.
Oh, yeah. Is that Sabotage? Or
Crimson Glory.
Oh, yeah.
Well, those were dudes that were contemporaries of yours, maybe about a year or two ahead of you guys.
Yeah. No, behind us, actually. They were younger than us.
Well, actually, no, they're not.
Are you sure? Because
I'm positive. Ben Jackson's 61.
I'm 60. I'll be 62 in June.
Okay, well then you're in your same range.
No, I knew those guys very well.
Drenning's younger, and Midnight I think was the same age as you. I think he was 62 too. So
yeah,
I know this shit, who knows?
Because we were managed by the same guy for many years.
Oh, you were Wyatt?
Yeah.
Okay, how about that? So yeah,
Wyatt
you knew those guys. Did you open for them, or did they open for
No,
you?
we never
or-
played. They didn't do that many shows, so we didn't play with them.
That's true.
And
They were
they're-
woodshedding to get a contract.
and we actually were working with Wyatt before they were. We started working with Wyatt in '82.
How'd that happen?
We were at a big outdoor concert, and he was there with his girlfriend, and he saw us and realized we kind of had something. And and at the time, More Sound Studios had just opened,
Right.
and we had a really quirky sound. It's kind of progressive almost cars. So if you could imagine this crazy sort of Genesis meets Cars thing meets Rush weird thing that we had going on in the early days. And Warren was like, that's really cool. You guys can play. So we met him and did some, and he kind of talked to us. It's probably maybe 83 or 84, but before Crimson Glory had come along. So anyway, we started working with him, and he kind of guided us into, that whole scene and into the club scene. And we worked with Warren on and off until probably in the early 90s,
When did band split up? Was it
92.
92? Okay.
Yeah, came off the circuit in 91, finished up 91, I think New Year's Eve of 91. And then we had one showcase in January of 92. And that was the last time we ever played together.
So you said you got a bass player that you weren't sure how you came into, but you had this singer, pretty dynamic singer. You know what I hear, man?
We met him in 83.
Okay.
And then the other
I
guy,
hear when he came in, I kind of hear like a heavy Bon Jovi, but
yeah,
just because of his voice. His voice
Yeah.
is kind of Bon Jovi-ish.
it
But
was.
Bon Jovi really wasn't around yet. I mean, he was 83, so you guys had already predated them a little bit. But
It was, that's but here's the weird thing is we weren't writing that kind of music, but we sounded like it because he sang like that.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, the music doesn't sound like you're right. Actually, can we play a little bit of it real quick?
go ahead.
Let's just do it just to I think this one is from 90, New World Machine. Is that later?
Well, we actually recorded that in 88, 89. So
Okay.
we were just trying to push it. And 90 was when we actually released it on our own. We had recorded them as, tracks for an album.
Yeah, here's the demo. I think. Is this the
No, that's
demo
the
or
album.
the
That's the album. Yeah.
Oh, that's the
only,
actual album.
Yeah. The only thing that's out there is the album.
Okay, let me see here. I'm doing the wrong thing. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Now, what song is this? Oh, this is from a demo. This isn't the same song.
Yeah, this is a New World. It's
Wow, this is real history here.
yeah, I'm not sure what the song's called. Oh, there it is. If there was a way.
Yeah, this is a demo that we were dropping the record company. Wow, I can't believe we found this.
Have you not heard this in a long time?
Not in a long time.
Well, we won't go the whole way in. We'll just go to the chorus.
Yeah.
This is you. Oh wait. And there's the Morris Sound stuff.
Yeah.
And this is was that the label?
Guava? Yeah, Guava was more sound.
I'll turn it down a little bit. There's the chorus. I believe that's you there.
Yeah, that's me.
Is that your singer, I believe, there?
On the end. Yeah, that might have been him. Yeah. I couldn't see your picture. Yeah, that was him.
All right, we'll stop
Wow.
there. I won't play the whole song.
I haven't heard that in years.
Yeah? What's your thoughts when you hear it?
Well,
It's pretty good, man. It's pretty
it's
good.
not bad. We were learning the craft of songwriting, and Jim was learning the art of production, and his skills were so high level. And if we would have come into a record company and they'd have brought in like a super pro LA songwriter or something like that to help us develop quicker,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there was some real potential there.
Was there okay? So you're doing the circuit there. Which how many clubs could you really hit? Were you getting over to Jacksonville? Were you doing Miami or anything like that?
We were at that point going from, well, we hit the circuit in 85, and we played everywhere from Key West to the Carolinas and everywhere in between. So it became a living. We were at the last 3 years of that, I'd say 88, 89, 90, 91. So the last 4 years of it, we were playing 50 weeks a year.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Multiple shows a week, or?
Oh God, 5 and 6 nights a week, because the clubs were open 7 nights a week. And,
man,
there was a real scene. The DJ thing, there was a real top 40 thing, but it was a super top 40, but there was a real rock scene. Rock radio was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, there was probably 25 bands in that circuit down here that were constantly touring these massive rock shows with lights and PAs and trucks. And, we were, at one point we had 4 guys working for us,
No shit.
Yeah.
Really, dude?
Yeah. And, you'd go out, you'd make $3,000, 3,500. And then by the time you paid your crew, your expenses, your agent for the PA, the lights and everything, you'd be left with you'd be making $150 a week per guy.
Wow. Which you got to be looking at each other going, man, but you were dedicated to the craft.
Oh yeah, we were chasing it. And to be fair, Warren was always in with the record company. I mean, Jason Flom was one of his best friends. I mean, we showcased for Flom maybe 3 times, but I began to think it was more of a golf trip to Florida for him than a showcase. And and there's a point where my ex-wife was our lead singer, and we got to showcase for a guy who would become a massive A&R guy, a guy named Kenny Commissar, and he was going to sign the band. But she had created so much friction within the band that the other guys were like, well, we're not signing a record deal with her. It was Jimmy and Paul. Me and Mark were like, look, just take the fucking deal. We'll deal with her. Yeah. And because it was Atlantic Records, right? Kenny was with Atlantic Records.
Wow.
And he's like, it was going to be his first big signing. And so he sold the whole thing to the record label, and then the band wouldn't sign the deal with the girl. And they're like, you get it, because we had Jimmy and her singing. So we had this, I don't know if you remember Animotion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There was this, we were like the rock Animotion in their mind. It was like, we're going to market the shit out of this. We got 2. Jimmy was a great looking guy. My ex-wife was really beautiful, tall, thin, Pat Benatar-ish looking. She had that thing going on, man. And we weren't married yet, but we were about to be.
Right.
And, so Atlantic was like, yeah, we can develop this. We'll bring in some songwriters, write a hit for you, and we can market this. And,
but you never actually went West Coast, right? You never went to LA or anything?
No. This was out of New York. They would come down. They'd fly down from New York to Florida. And
wow. There. I've known you all these years, and I didn't know this story. That's why this is really cool to do this.
And the night of the showcase, we showcased at Rick's in Key West, and Rick's had this big open air bar up on top across from Sloppy Joe's. There was probably 600 people in there that night. And it was rammed. And during the day, Sherry had a flip out at the band. And I remember at one point we're rehearsing, getting ready for the big showcase that night. She had a pump, stiletto, and she launched it at Mark across the bar. And I'll never forget this as long as I live, seeing that pump glide in between the cymbals and him sitting on the drum kit going like that. And it just went right past his head.
Oh shit.
And I was like, man, things have changed forever.
Yeah. And so it was irretrievably broken at that point.
Yeah. And we crushed the showcase that night. It led to the offer. And I'll never forget sitting in the parking lot of Mr. T's Club 19 in Clearwater with Warren going, what do you mean you're not going to take the deal with her? And Jimmy and Paul were staunch. They were like, no, we're not signing a record deal with her. We'll get a record deal without them. They're our songs. And Warren's like, you don't get it, man. You don't get it.
This is the time right now.
Right now. And it's her and it's Jimmy. It's not Jimmy without her. And the band was like, no, fuck that bitch. And then
wow.
She decided to quit. That was probably in November. And we had one more gig. Well, we worked with her for the next 5 weeks. And her last show was New Year's Eve of, I want to say 1986, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes get this confused. I was New Year's of 86 or 87.
Mm-hmm.
And Jocko, we were playing this club called the Button South, and it was open. They had 6 a.m. liquor license. So obviously on New Year's Eve, we were playing all the way up to 5:45, right?
Holy shit.
And we were just about to start our last set at 5, and in walks Jocko Pastorius.
Whoa.
And he was floating. He was legendary at that time, floating around. So this might have been New Year's of 87. I think I got married in 87. Yeah. So anyway, so I think it was New Year's of 87, her last show. And Jocko comes in and he is hammered. And, it was the Miami scene, and Jocko did a lot of drugs. So he was coked out of his mind.
Yeah, a lot of coke. Yep.
And the manager of the club said, Jocko wants to play with you. And we're like, okay. So we meet him, and he's crazy, and he's massive, and he's sweaty, and he's like, I want to play with you guys. And, and Jimmy had this big Aria Pro 2 bass, and this big, beautiful, it looked like a coffee table, and he goes out there, and we had, at the time, Jimmy had an SVT rig with 2 810s on it and a big SVT.
Holy shit.
Head. So it was loud, right?
Loud, yeah.
And we go out, and he's like, we're going to play Purple Haze. And we're like, yeah, we'll play Purple Haze. And so we go out, and I'm singing it, I think. I was singing it. And he walks over to the SVT head and just cranks it on 10.
Uh-oh.
And we take off into this vicious version of Purple Haze. And once we finish it, we're kind of vamping on that E there. Mm-hmm. And he starts to just fucking just rip, man. He's just fucking just becomes this big solo. So then the keyboard player, Paul, decides to walk off the stage. And then it's Mark and me and Jocko. And then Jocko turns around and starts screaming at Mark, shuffle, come on, man, shuffle.
Wow.
Purple Haze, so he tries to start working a shuffle into Purple Haze,
Yeah, how do you do that exactly?
I know. And so at this point, I'm just vamping on an E. Mm-hmm. And Jocko is like taking the neck of this. He's so physical. He was massive. And he's playing some amazing shit, and the crowd gathered in front of him. And it's like 5:45 in the morning, and the club.
Everybody's hammered.
Everyone's hammered. And the manager of the bar is standing on the side of the stage going, cut him off, cut him off, cut him off. And finally, I just kind of turned my guitar off. And now this is after about 20 minutes, right?
Wow.
Just one song.
Oh, shit.
I put my guitar down, slid off stage, the manager starts screaming at me, get him off the stage. I'm like, you put him here,
Yeah, right.
Now, here's the funny part. And this is a story I haven't really told that often.
I was going to say, this is a wild one. You never told me this.
Did you ever watch 21 Jump Street?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. There was a character on 21 Jump Street that was a friend of Johnny Depp's, because Johnny Depp used to play the button and hang out. So this was kind of his scene.
Right.
And he had gone to LA, was in 21 Jump Street. Well, he took his little buddy called Sal, this little Cuban guy, dark black hair, always wore Ray-Bans.
Yeah.
He was, I think his character name was the Blowfish. So
I
Sal
remember that dude.
Home, and he's standing on the side of the stage because he
no
was
way
there. Oh yeah, and he's got it's January, or it's New Year's Eve in Florida. It's not cold. He's wearing his full length coat, Ray-Bans at 5:45 in the morning in the Button South. And I knew Sal, and so the manager's screaming at me. I'm like, Sal, I'll give you $10 if you go out there and turn his amp off. And he just looked at me and said, $10? I'm like, $10, man. And it was this really long, wide stage, and Jocko, man, he is.
And Jocko's just going off like he's possessed.
And Mark wants off the stage. So Mark's actually pulling drumsticks out of he's playing, he'd pull a drumstick out and throw it at us. Get me off the stage. Make this stop,
Yeah.
And he's pissed. And so as long as I live, I will never forget the Blowfish sauntering across the stage with his hands in his pockets in that trench coat, walking up behind Jocko and going, click. The amp stopping, Mark throwing his sticks down, and Jocko looks around and goes,
oh man, wow. How fucking weird is that, right?
He walks into the dressing room. My ex-wife is screaming because she was excluded. Jimmy's pissed. Mark is raging, and Jocko is like, "That was fucking amazing," and he's all hyped and sweaty and crazy.
Oh man.
And then so Jimmy's like, "Yeah, man, you're kind of my idol. Can you sign my bass?"
Oh Jesus.
So he hands Jocko the aria back. Jimmy turns around looking for a marker. Jocko sees a blue Bic pen, the old ballpoint Bics.
Yeah.
He turns the bass over, takes the Bic, jams it into the back of the bass, and in letters that big carves Jocko.
You're fucking kidding me.
And we're all sitting there watching this happen.
Yeah, like what do you do?
This isn't like, I mean, he
carved it in.
Here, man.
Wow. So
he died a few months later.
I was gonna say, man. I mean, he must have been ragingly coked out to be that insane. Holy shit! How old was he? Was he in his like 40s, right?
No, he was probably early 40s at that point.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy story, dude. Now, did you say? I guess the one logical follow up here though is you're gonna marry this woman. She was the lead singer. How much tension? Well, how much longer did the band carry on then with Jimmy without her? A couple years, right?
Oh, we went all the way to 92. Yeah. Because
and this was 87, so 5 years.
Instantly we started writing, songs. We had enough. We'd written a couple albums worth at that point. And, Kenny Commissar was done with us, but Jason Flom was still interested. I mean, Saigon Kick was getting signed, and Warren Wyatt was managing Saigon Kick. Marillion Manson and the Spooky Kids were starting to come up, and Brian would be walking around the Button South with a lunchbox and a little posse behind him, and we did a few gigs with them. We played Summers on the Beach with those guys. And,
no way, for real?
Yeah, because there'd be these multi-band bills, and the Spooky Kids would play, And then the Mavericks were starting to hit, and John Tovar was managing the Mavericks, and he was managing the Spooky Kids. And so there's a lot of things happening, a lot of bands being signed, and we were in that mix, And I actually believe that what happened at that point is Jane's Addiction came out probably, I want to say it was 89, 90, and we started covering Jane's Addiction, and, it was like, wow, this is something's shifting here. And then shortly after that, Nirvana hit, and that was kind of it now. That
was it. Yep. Yeah, James was a little earlier in that, and actually that alt metal thing started to happen. I mean, Saigon Kick was kind of an alt metal, man. They had the Beatle, they had the Beatle harmonies, but the heavy riffs from Jason, and
sounds probably 88, maybe. 89?
I think it was 80. I think 88 was Ritual OD, or not Ritual.
Ritual.
Nothing shocking.
Which
Ritual was 91, I believe. 90.
And I got to see them on that first tour. I actually ran into them, and there was about 200 people in the club, and
no way,
it was a mind-blowing experience. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. So,
did you Well, I guess the question I was attempting to ask there was, so you married this woman, but what kind of was she constantly saying, well, I should still be in the band, or how was that relationship? Because that's a weird dynamic, right?
That was a weird dynamic. Yeah, that was her last show, and within weeks she was hired by another band. Oh, and she was out on the same circuit that we were in, so we didn't get to see each other that much. We'd see each other a couple times a month, and then a few months after that, she joined another band, and that summer she got pregnant. And so I was a good Catholic kid. So I was like, if you want to have, we decided that we were definitely having the baby.
Right.
And I said, well, I'll marry you, And so she ended up quitting her band. And then we got married and had Jamie,
Right.
So, and then I didn't realize at the time that she was, I mean, the signs were there, but, I was a young kid. I was probably 24 when we got married, 23. And I didn't understand bipolar. And, a few years later, she was diagnosed as bipolar. So within a year of us getting married, she'd taken off with some other guy. So.
Oh, yeah. I did know that. So we get through Autodrive, and then what happens then? Because then you kind of start doing like a solo thing. You got a young kid, baby. And that kind of has a little bit of a backstory to itself, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Regards to your daughter.
She was, Sherry was kind of off with the fairies, and she had custody of Jamie. And so I spent the next couple of years just, single and meeting girls and trying to,
Sure.
reestablish a relationship, and with the band and everything. And then Autodrive ended, but that was my living. I had no other way to make a living.
Right.
Autodrive ended, and I immediately, within 2 weeks, had bought an acoustic guitar, learned a bunch of songs, and I was out playing pubs as a singer, which I was never really a singer.
Right.
But I was faking it. And there was an Irish pub.
But hang on a sec, because you have such a great voice, man. And a lot of people don't really know that unless they've come into your solo work later, or they've seen you backing up Porcupine Tree or something like that. You have this very unique sound to your voice. And I'm curious, did you never, I mean, I know how it is because I feel like I can sing, but I don't really know, and I'm a pretty confident dude, but that's a tricky thing, man, because putting yourself out there with anything like that, I
wasn't a singer. I sang 2 or 3 songs a night to give Jimmy a break.
Okay.
And then when the band ended, I had no choice. It was like, you're going to sing or else you're going to go get a job at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Because, my college degree was in music. So, I was, my skill set in the real world was limited to thank you drive through. Within 2 weeks, I had learned a bunch of songs, built a fake book, and I was doing acoustic gigs. And then that's how I made a living doing that. And then I put a 3-piece together and a 4-piece and, and started doing little bands. And I had to sing, and it wasn't great at first, so.
But it's crazy now because I've seen you do the live stuff yourself. And then I've seen you obviously backing up Steven and other things that you've done. And you have such a cool voice, man. And it's like, I hadn't listened to some of your older material until kind of prepping for this. I didn't get through everything, and I didn't actually pull anything because all my stuff is, because of COVID, we had to move and it's in boxes everywhere. And I just don't, I don't know where it's at. But I was going through YouTube and pulling some tracks out, and I just forgot how freaking good your voice is, dude. No,
it developed really quickly. I'm going to take a break. You talk. I'll be right back.
I'll talk. All right. Okay. So we're gonna continue on in here in a minute. And Spooky Kids. That was I don't remember the Spooky Kids lunchbox thing. That's something new to me. I probably wasn't really paying that much attention to Manson. In fact, I came up knowing about, the first time I heard Manson was probably the cover, the Eurythmics cover. So I don't really know that story there, but appreciate the people that are here. Wish there were more, but this was this came together in a short time. So hopefully a lot of people will check it out later. But and hopefully I got Wes for about another 40 minutes or so. We can get through some of this stuff. There you go.
All right, I'm back.
All right, brother. I think the one thing I wanted to touch on was, so you're doing the acoustic thing. You're learning that you can sing and that you can pull this off. Are you starting to write your own songs then at that point?
Oh yeah. I was
always writing.
I was always through Autodrive. I was one of the main songwriters. I actually wrote the majority of the lyrics for Autodrive.
Okay.
Jimmy wasn't a great lyric writer and wasn't great with melodies. And I had really developed that. So I wasn't a great singer, but I understood melody and I understood vocals. And so I was actually the driving force in lyrics in that band. And Paul wrote some lyrics. Paul actually wrote some of the most unique and coolest lyrics of that. But and then so immediately on my own thing, I started working on my own stuff, and that really developed really quickly. I got some showcases solo right away, and then I met the Marillion guys in '92.
Yeah, how'd that come about? What was the deal there?
A buddy of mine was a very famous sound man and still is. He's he works with JT and he's worked with just everyone in the business. He's one of the most known sound men, a guy named Andy Meyer. But back then we were all on the same circuit and we were good friends. And he got a call from a management company he was working with. He had been working with the Smithereens at the time. And one of the managers said, look, there's a band coming over from England. This is 92, early 92, January of 92. And their guitar tech and their guitar tech and their drum tech just quit. And they need someone for a 6-week US run. And Andy was out of work. And Andy's like, well, fuck, I'll set up drums. And then he's like, who do I call? Who do I call? And he called me. He said, hey, man, do you want to take this gig as a guitar tech? This band called Marillion. And I remembered the hit Kaylee from MTV. And I'm like, dude, I'm not a guitar tech. And he goes, come on, man. You've had guitar techs the last 5 years of your life. You trained them.
Yeah, right.
I said, all you got to do is plug shit in and tune his guitar.
Make sure shit's in tune. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and
this is 92, so this is
it's January of 92. I'm a single dad. I'm broke. I got child support, and it's like $650 a week.
And this is for the holidays in Eden, probably.
Holidays in Eden.
Yeah.
And I said, $650 a week?
I'll take it.
Hell yeah.
Fake it till you make it, or make it till you fake it, or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
fake it till you make it. So we rented a 24-foot box truck, drove up to Quebec, and met the guys on the first rehearsal day. And they were lovely. They were sweet.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they kind of knew that I really knew what I was doing. Didn't really know what I was doing. But they were so kind about it. And hey, Brother's guitars were in tune and all the shit worked. So great. And I was good fun. So that afternoon we had a big lunch together, and we just all hit it off, you know. And that night everyone was like, let's go to a club. So this is the first day we met them. And we went to a rock club, and there was a band playing in Quebec. And I got a little drunk, and I met the guitar player in the bathroom. And I'm like, hey man, you know, I'm with this band. We're can I jam with you? And he's like, well, what do you know? I said, how about some Led Zeppelin? How about rock and roll? He goes, oh yeah, we play that. So I got up on stage with him. I'm playing rock and roll, and the guys in the band are like, at this point, they didn't know I played yet, right?
Yeah, right,
so
right.
They're going, I saw a guitar tech.
Yeah. What's he doing up there?
What's he doing up there? And you know, we blasted out some rock and roll, and then that opened up a lot more conversations.
Wow.
So we go out we do the first show, and the opening act had stepped on some gear and just pissed the sound man off. And then the second opening act pissed the sound man off even more. A guy named Privet Hedge was a lovely, lovely human being.
Yeah.
Really.
Chris, right.
And by the third show, man, he was over it. And Andy, my good buddy, said, well, you know, Wes does solo gigs, man. He could go out there and open that show. It'd be one guitar and a voice, do 30 minutes. And you wouldn't have that hassle anymore. And Privet was like, oh my God, what a great idea.
Yeah, right.
Privet called ahead to Syracuse. We did a Toronto gig. The next gig was Syracuse, fucked off the opening act. And Pete, the bass player, loaned me his acoustic guitar. And they said, you're in, you know, and they had heard a demo of mine in the back lounge of the bus. So they're like, yeah, if you can do 30 minutes, we'll give you $100. I was like, what? And they were like, oh yeah, you know, you work all day, do 30 minutes, you make another $100.
I'm in.
Mark Kelly walks out on stage that night, and he says, all right, here's the deal, mate. My friend Wes is coming out here, and if you boo him, I'm going to come out there, I'm going to fuck all your girlfriends.
Which now, that would be the guy. Mark would be that
Mark
guy.
Would be the guy. And then I went out and played, and at the end of that set, I changed my clothes, went back and did the guitar tech role. And Privet came back after the show and said, I'm calling everyone else on the rest of the tour. You're in. You're the guy.
Nice.
And so that opened up a relationship that lasted, you know, still ongoing.
So the crazy thing is the way that I came to you or found out about you was not actually through Fish, which that's how I came to know you initially on a wider scope. But I remember, and I'm trying to think of the year here. You did this thing called West Fest.
Yeah, 97 was the first one.
Okay, that was it, 97. So I got a copy of that from JJ. Do you remember JJ?
Yeah, of
I
course.
think JJ's passed now, I believe.
He has,
right?
yes. He
Yeah.
passed years ago.
He was a character, man,
I
and
love JJ. Yeah,
larger than life dude, and he was a big supporter of yours.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
he got me that CD, and I don't remember how, where, or why. It's probably alcohol or something. I don't know. I was still drinking back then. So, but I checked it out. I'm like, oh, and then I grabbed your first album, which was that out by then yet? I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. That came out. Mark Kelly produced that, and Ian played drums on one of the songs, and that came out in '93. And I was actually the first release on Marillion's record label,
Racket
Records. Yeah,
that's right.
They started Racket to put that record out. And
yeah, I'm gonna do this, Wes. I really want people to hear this song.
Oh,
if
sure.
you don't mind. It's 3 minutes, but I really think this song still kicks my ass, dude. This in 13 days, which I didn't pull up, but
yeah, 13 days.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But this one is really a beautiful song. I'm gonna play it. You hear that all right?
Sure.
It's off your first album.
Up on a hill,
And that voice.
looking out
So good.
over the ruins burning still. Where was I for all of this? Where was I for all of this? You never looked so bad, she said. I didn't know that I could do all this, she said. I didn't know all this could burn with just a kiss. Burn with just a kiss. I didn't know. You didn't know this Rome was burning. You didn't notice that you had the flame still in your hands. Why didn't you know that Rome was burning? And as the passion filled your eyes, you couldn't see to find the home you left behind. Like all the other lovers that live blind. The lovers that live blind, no, you couldn't see. And you didn't notice Rome was burning. And you didn't notice that you had the flame still in your hands. And didn't you know that Rome was burning? You didn't notice that you had the flame still in your hands. Didn't you know that Rome was burning? Oh, 'cause you didn't notice that you had the flame still in your hands. Why didn't you know that Rome was burning?
There it is. I think you're off.
Okay, I'll start over. Dude, what a fucking song, man. What a fucking song. And what a voice. And we had a little bit of artifact there. I'm not sure where it was coming from, but whatever. But gives people the idea, man. I mean, the first album, Under the Red and White Sky, is just, man, you put out a lot of good music since then, but there's something special about that album for me. Probably because it was my first album that I got. It's not all acoustic, but there's a lot.
No, there's a lot acoustic, but there's a lot of band stuff on there too. Because I mean, ultimately, I was a electric guitar player at heart.
Right.
Just playing acoustic guitar to make a living,
So you do the Marillion gig, and they pull you back in often. And in fact, the last time you and I saw each other physically, face to face.
2016.
Oh, yeah, it was 2016. I'm like, how in the fuck has it been almost 8 years? Like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell? And you opened for Marillion on their Fear tour, which was cool. And you were sick that night. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Who the hell is this guy coming in here, man? Get out of here. Get out of here. Love that dude.
Yeah, he's special.
But yeah, man, I mean, you know, that you got to do a lot of stuff for them, and they opened a lot of doors for you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they did.
And I know you're very grateful to those guys, all very wonderful guys. I've gotten to meet all of them, and except for Mark. I didn't get to meet Mark.
Yeah. We've done over 400 shows together. So
is it that many, Wes? Damn.
Yeah.
Well, then did that kind of lead to the Fish thing, or how?
Yeah.
What was next in the line of?
Yeah, so I had done a record with a producer in England that went really. There's a long story about that. He'd represented himself as something he wasn't, and so the Shiver album came out, and you know, sonically it's not up to the level of the other ones because of that situation. But that producer had also been working with Fish, and recommended when Fish. Steven Wilson had gone in there and produced a record and had played guitar on a record, and it had upset the other two guitarists. And I think they were just tired of it. They'd done a lot of Fish at that point. He needed a guitar player.
Yeah.
And so Mark Daghorn recommended me, and then Mark Kelly and Stephen Rothery both let Fish know that I could do the job.
Right.
And so Fish called, and I shipped my gear over there, and we did an acoustic tour first. And then we went out that summer, and we rocked, man.
And then was that I'm trying to remember, was that was all prior to you coming over and Fish coming back to the States for the first time in many years to do that short little East Coast mini tour? Yeah,
that mini tour was in 2000. I'd played probably a couple hundred plus shows with them at that point.
But it was all overseas though, UK,
all overseas.
Europe. Yeah.
All around the world. We hadn't done the States yet. And then I was getting married to Becca in 2000.
Right.
January of 2000. And that's when he came over and brought the whole band, and we did the East Coast tour, went to they all came to the wedding. We had a massive party at the wedding.
Yeah, I think you did 5 shows, right? You did Tampa, Georgia, DC, New York, and Philly.
Yep.
And I was at DC and Philly.
Yep.
And do you remember in Philly, we had a pre-show party that the Kona convention did, and it was Tom Pickle and one other dude. I don't remember the other guy's name.
Yeah, Tom Pickle and I don't know.
Craig Stevens? No, I can't remember his name. But they put that together, and I actually helped them find that venue down there. And then if you remember, you did an opening set, and whose guitar did you play?
I can't remember. Did I play yours?
You played My Ovation.
I can't. Oh, wow.
You played My Ovation over a Guild. I was like, he's taking the Ovation over the Guild, but I think you liked the fact that you could plug in and not have to mic it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And an Ovation in a live setting will never let you down.
Yeah, that's in a closet over here. I've upgraded to a Taylor, a high-end Taylor. It's a little bit of an upgrade there, just
a little bit. But an Ovation in any gig situation will never let you down.
Hey, you know what? They're great guitarists. They work. They do the trick. And that particular one is the first year they did the thin body cutaway edition with the shallow bowl, not the balladeer bowl. So it was kind of a nice comfortable guitar to play. They almost plays like an electric. But man, dude, I remember those shows. Well, I like to say I kind of remember them, but I don't really remember them. There was a lot of alcohol consumed before, during, and after. But good times, man. And that's where I got to know you a little better, a little bit more on a personal basis. We didn't. It wasn't like we'd hung out much to that point or anything, but and so the Fish gig results in you doing an album. You write an album with him called Fellini Days.
I did,
which came out in when was that?
2000.
2001.
Yeah, 2001. Yeah, I say it came out in 2000, and then we toured all the way through 2001. And I had met Steven at Fish's farm. And we just hit it off, and we became friends. Because I was a kind of a Porcupine Tree fan. I initially met them in '95 on a Marillion gig,
Oh, so you did know them prior to that?
Barely, just one night I met him and talked to him, and I don't think he remembers that, but we connected at one of the Fish parties, probably in '98 or '99, and then Becca came to London once to visit me while I was working on the record, and we had dinner with Steven, and we were just friends, and then the Fish thing, we finished a tour, and Steven had just finished recording in absentia, and I want to say it was January or February of 2002, and he was mixing and wasn't happy with the guitar sounds on Blackest Eyes and wanted to heavy it up, and asked me if I could add some. He reached out to me because he remembered when I was playing with Fish, I played different than any other guitar player. I played very rock, very heavy.
Yeah, versus Robin Bolt, who's a little bit more of an alternative player, and Frank Usher, who had a very unique sound. Frank had a very unique sound, but he was very kind of classic rocky, I guess. In a lot of ways.
Very different. Yeah. And it worked. I was touring 200-watt Marshall heads and 2 4x12. So let's say it was massive.
Yes.
And, so Steven was like, "Can you do that thing you do with Fish on Blackest Eyes?" And he sent me the tracks, and Mark and I loaded them up into Pro Tools. And I was like, "God, this is amazing," And then I tracked, like, I want to say 6 or 8 tracks of Les Paul and Marshall over the heavy section, and sent them back to him. And then he reached out and said, "I love that. And you sing as well?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Could you sing some background vocals?" I sang on Blackest Eyes, Sound of Music, and something else. And then a month later, he's like, "Look, we're going to tour, and I can't play all these parts and sing, and there's I need to hire another guitar player. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Of course, yeah."
This is 01.
This is 02.
02. Okay.
Early, it's spring of 02.
Right. Because the
summer
tour
of 02 is when we played that first tour.
Yeah, you did that the little pre-release because the album came out in September.
Yeah,
you guys did. I think
2 weeks.
L.A., San Francisco, New York,
Boston was actually the first show.
Right. And when I was at Philly because that's the show that Steven and I'm trying to remember. Well, no, I guess no, it wasn't. Let me back up. Well, Gavin was in the band then, right? Yeah. So I had actually seen them in 01 when they came over and headlined Nearfest, which you were not, and Chris was still in. Yeah.
Chris, yeah.
So by that time, I'd already become a dedicated wingnut in the PT camp. Yeah.
Gavin and I started at exactly the same time.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you? Where did you guys rehearse for that? Over there or over here?
In New York. They had done some rehearsals there, and then we had about a day and a half of rehearsals. So I had to learn that whole set before I got there, and then I had a day and a half to work it in with the band, and then we played the next night in Boston.
And then, so you did that little sort of summer pre-release tour, which was kind of a taster.
Yeah.
Then it really started to ramp up to a lot of touring. So. Just to go back to Fish for 1 minute, you did write the Fellini Days album, and we've spoken about it. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's one of the weirdest albums for him. It doesn't sound right for some reason. And I think you had mentioned that there was some issues with some of the gear in the studio. I like the album. There's some good songs on it. Yeah. Very progressive in a lot of ways, but it has a weird.
Well, so what had happened is in that time period, the albums previous to Fellini Days, Fish had a full-blown studio in his house, a massive mixing console. I can't remember the desk. And he had one of the first Sony digital machines. He had a 32-track digital machine.
Wow.
In his studio, he had a real recording studio.
Yeah.
And when I got there, he had sold it and had decided we were going to record, but then the record label didn't give him the budget. So I show up to Scotland and there's no gear in this studio.
Oh.
And I was working in Pro Tools at the time, but a Pro Tools rig was going to cost him 30 grand. So I said, "Look, man, the only thing I can think of doing is," he had a relationship with Behringer. Right. Behringer sent some mic pre's that were consumer level mic pre's. And then DigiDesign Pro Tools had just come out with a home system for $1,000 called the 001 or the 002.
Yeah, very rudimentary early digital stuff. Yeah.
Little box, little, converters, in a little tiny box. And we recorded that entire album through that little tiny box.
Something like this. Only not this good, probably.
Yeah. We recorded the entire Fish record, drums and everything through that box. And then Callum Malcolm took the tracks and mixed it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because I do like the album, but it's weird to listen to. It has a lot of
because
phasing issues and just things don't sound right weirdly. Especially the guitar tone, which sucks because you got some good guitar. You always have good guitar tone, and it's like on there. It just I don't know. So I'm not hanging on that. It's just sad that that's the one album that you did with him. That it's kind of the weird one that sticks out.
Yeah. I mean, there were some good songs and great parts, but we recorded it through what people were using in their bedroom to record demos with, and that was an album, and it was like, fuck, man,
So you did a lot of touring with him, and then you hook up with Steve. You get into PT. And then begins 8 years. You did 8 years with PT, a lot of tours. Do you know how many dates you did with them? Did you ever count it?
500.
Wasn't that many? But we're talking kind of pretty big stuff. I mean, it started at the club level with, a couple hundred people. Yeah. And it then got to the point where by the end, you're playing Radio City Music Hall. Yeah. A sold out show, or you're playing
Royal Albert Hall,
Right. That's where I come in more heavily with you. Yeah. I start seeing you regularly every couple months. You're out on tour, and we're hooking up, and we're going out and getting sushi, or I'll remember a funny story. We're driving to San Diego, you, me, and Ann, and we went to take you down there to get your in-ears or something
from Ultimate in-ears. Yeah. So my in-ears. I had gotten at the very first gig of Porcupine Tree. I started the tree with in-ears, and they had made them out of silicone, and the silicone had started to shed. So you took me to Ultimate, and they took those in-ears and put them into some hard plastic molds for me. And then I still have them. Actually, they are here.
No way.
Those in-ears.
That same set.
That's them.
No way.
Yeah.
And that was 2003 or 5. I forget which. 5, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
But here's the funny part of that story. Do you remember what happened on the way down there?
No.
Well, you wouldn't. You were asleep the whole way. We literally got out of LA. We got out of Lake Redondo, and we're talking. All of a sudden, Ann goes, and I look over, and
I was out, man.
We just let you go. Yeah. I mean, other funny stories is went on the I don't know whether it was the first or second, probably the first leg of the LA show. We went over to John's place. Remember, we had a big barbecue.
Yeah.
And Steven went upstairs and fell asleep.
Yeah. We were working hard.
Yeah. That was when Ross was the TM.
Yeah. I remember
Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was some funny stuff that went on there, man. And we did, it wasn't like it was like a party all the time. It wasn't like that. But
yeah,
but there was some partying that was going on. I was actually sober at that point in time. I'd stopped drinking because of the Fletcher's show, the infamous Fletcher's show. Do you remember the Fletcher show in Baltimore?
Baltimore, yeah.
That was the one that was you had to lug the gear up the stairs to get in that tiny low ceiling place. And
interesting story about that show was someone videotaped it and gave me the videotape. My dad was dying at that time, and I was able to send him that videotape, and he was able to watch it right before he passed.
Oh wow, really?
So, yeah, it was a real moment. So Fletcher's sticks in my mind, not for a bad reason, but because my dad was actually able to see me play in that band, and before he passed.
It was a bad night for me. I did not have a good night after I left that show, and that was the night where I had to make some decisions about things. And so, but lots of good times, lots of craziness, but not in a crazy way. There was never like crazy drug stuff or any weird shit like that. But like out in San Francisco, we went to the sushi place.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, there was about 10 of us or something like that. And I'll never forget that taxi ride over there. Me and Tracy and Ann were just clinging to the seats, just like, because this guy's like hitting those hills like, insanely, man. And then we went when we got back to where the bus was, you guys were staying in a local hotel there that night.
Yep.
And we were walking through the streets that was down kind of near the Tenderloin, not in it.
Yeah, it was at the edge of the Tenderloin. There was a hotel there that everyone stayed in, and I wish I could remember the name of it.
I can't remember the name.
The buses, because they had bus parking there.
Yes, they had bus parking. And we were walking through the streets, and there was, people pushing carts with all their stuff in it, which is sad, but that's the world we live in. But yeah, we had some interesting times. So that, when, just to touch on the Porcupine Tree thing for a second here, when you get to playing Radio City, pretty big moment. Huge thing. It's a shame that wasn't recorded properly, but it was going to cost bajillions of dollars to do that, so there really wasn't a way to do that. But did you kind of know at the end of the incident that things were going to cease to operate? Did you know, or were you not included in those conversations?
Those conversations weren't happening. There was tension. We'd been out for a long time. Everyone was tired. There were some arguments. There were some arguments over money around the Radio City thing, because Radio City just robbed us blind. I mean, and the band was really, when we found out how that was going to end up, everyone was really upset about it. But then we went back to Europe and we did some shows through UK and Ireland, and that resulted in the final show at Radio City Music Hall. And driving from Ireland to that show, or whatever the gig before that last show was.
You mean Royal Albert Hall?
Yeah. There was an altercation. I think Steve wrote about it in his book, from what I heard. I don't know. And there was an altercation, and some tensions, and a big argument. And so when we got to Radio City that evening, really no one was talking to each other except, like for me. And I think Steven, I didn't know how far Steven had the Phoenix. Yes, Tom. It was.
Yeah, that's Phoenix. It. Yeah, the Phoenix. Yep.
Correct.
We didn't stay there. The band did. We stayed up the road at the much nicer Continental, I think it was, or something.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. So it was really tense backstage at the Royal Albert Hall.
No kidding.
Show. Very, very tense. They weren't talking to each other. And actually the crew were making jokes. Tonto was like, "You're fucking John Wesley Switzerland, aren't you?"
You're in the middle. Yeah.
You're neutral. And, but usually whenever there was tension, those would always resolve, but there was a lot of tension that night. But we played an amazing show. And then at the end of the show, Colin just kind of took off with his wife, because they were away from the kids. And I'll never forget it. I said, "Colin, you coming to the backstage?" And he's like, "No, man, I got a night in a hotel with my wife. I'm out of here." He just took off, man.
Yeah, just done.
And, the booking agent, Neil Warnock, came in and said, "Hey, you guys take a little time off, make a record. And when you come back, it's in Normodomes, And I was like, "Okay, my ticket is written." And then Steven was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do a solo record, and we'll do a Petrie record. And then it'll be in Normodomes." He's like, "You're set up for it." He goes, We're ready. It's ready to go." And then, Steve came over to do the guitars for, I want to say it was In Hercentis. And we did a lot of the filming for Lass's movie. We went to
I think, John, if I can interrupt for a sec, I think it was for Grace, because Insurgentes was that was 2009 that came out.
Okay. And I'd done the guitars for that too.
Yeah, you did. Right. And I think you did on Grace too, because then you toured. You actually went out with Steve when he finally went solo on that. You saw you down in Philly for that show.
That's
and
right.
Yeah. That's so right. He didn't tour Insurgentes, so it would have been Grace. Yeah.
It would have been Grace. Oh my God. Thank you for reminding me. It all blurs together. So So I did guitars for 4 albums with him. Because I did the guitars on Anesthetized. I did the guitars on The Incident, Insurgentes, and Grace.
Yep.
So engineered 4 albums with him. But
so you're getting to that point where they're saying the Normodomes, and that just goes radio silent, I guess, right?
It did, yeah. And it went radio silent. But you would get a call or an email from somebody in the organization, not the guys in the band, and they go, okay, I think it's happening next year. I think, Steve's going to finish this record and then we're going out next year. And then that would keep going, and then.
Well, was Andy still involved at this point? I guess he was, right?
He was, yeah.
Probably, yeah, because he was managing you for a short while in 14, I believe.
Yeah. And he was still involved. But it kept going and it kept going. And then I had a baby and I was struggling and I was putting out another record and I'd done all the Simon Collins stuff. And in 2014, I went out with Big Elf, which was a scream. And
Damon's great, isn't he? What a guy.
I love that.
And that's one of my favorite band.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite tours of all time because Portnoy too really made it special because, he has this reputation of being really uptight and super on a gig. But on that gig, man, he was so much fun. We only had one rehearsal and with him, and him and I would throw each other cues all night. And he was so gracious with his cues. And, something was coming up and I'd look at him and he'd look at me, and then I had already had a few more rehearsals with the band. So there were times I was going, now,
yeah, right.
And then, on the bus, he's a sober guy. So he would just kind of get in the back lounge and put on a video and he was chill. And,
the times I've met him, he's a super nice guy. Super cool.
Man.
Very friendly like you, very open.
And we still carry on our relationship. He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, you just did the Neil Peart thing.
We did, yeah. And he was amazing, and we hung out. And he was Mike. And then Damon he's just. I mean, we could talk the rest of the thing just about Damon.
Yeah, super talented guy. Oh my god.
My god.
Yeah. Crazy
guitar player, keyboard player, singer. So I had a lot of fun on that tour. I really enjoyed that tour. And Duffy, the bass player, was it was the last tour he ever did. He had a stroke after that.
That's right.
Right. And he had to go back to Finland, and he's in an assisted care facility in Finland.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he's paralyzed.
By the way, if people don't know the Big Elf band,
oh my God,
that are watching, you gotta go check that band out. Yeah. It's like the funnest, killerest rock version of King Crimson you'll ever hear. They got the Mellotrons and the cool Deep Purple vibes, but yet they're super fun and quirky and rocky and weird and so good.
It was one of the things that after the Marillion tour in 2016 that kind of shut me down from touring and doing stuff for a while was the fact that we worked so hard on that 2014 and 2015, and then it just died. And I thought it was this amazing record and this amazing tour. And I thought all these things were going to happen. And it was a crushing ending to that tour that nothing, came out of it. And the end was very difficult.
Yeah, I forgot you actually played on the last album.
No, I didn't play on any of his records.
No, you didn't play on the record. I thought you did. Okay, my bad.
I just played the tour.
Okay.
And it was such an exciting thing to be a part of. And when it kind of ended, it was crushing. And that was like, oh, which Big Elf songs I like playing the most? Oh God, all of them.
I have their stuff, Tom, and I can't remember the names.
I can't remember the names.
Yeah. That's getting you forget, Tom, you're 40. We're almost Wes is 60. I'm pushing 60. We're old men over here, man. We have old men brains. So great band.
Some of the classic, like Blackball, was just fucking so fun.
Oh yeah.
It was just fun to play, man. It was
great riffs, heavy stomping riffs, and Black Forest.
I developed a relationship with him that we became like. I just felt like we were brothers at the end of that tour, man. So I miss him. I miss Damon. So.
I want to get him on my show. If you have a way of contacting him,
I do. Yeah, I'll connect you.
Okay. So all right. So you do the Big Elf thing. That was when was that again?
2014.
Oh, it was 14. Okay.
Yeah, and I did the Marillion thing in 16 and released my last record, "A Way You'll Never Be."
Which, by the way, we got to stop there. Okay, we got to talk about that album.
Sure.
That album, dude. Although I said the first album is kind of my sentimental favorite, my favorite album is the last album. It's just
me too.
It's ballsy, it's Zeppelin-y, it's heavy, great riffs on it. Some of your best I think some of your best guitar playing.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
Absolutely. And it's interesting because you and I, Wes, we're kind of, I'm not putting myself on your level, but I'm not a bad player. And the one thing that I find, though, and I wanted to ask you about this is you and I see these kids on YouTube and we see these kids on Instagram and these kids that, you know, they're hyper scary, right? I mean, these dudes doing these, you know, these, what do you think of that stuff? Like, does it, I mean, are you appreciative of it or you just look at it and go, you know what I mean? Like I used to be appreciative and now I'm kind of like, everybody seems to be able to do these, you know, these crazy, shreddy, sweep picking things that really don't have a lot of soul to them. I'm not saying I wish I couldn't do it. I wish I could. I can't, you know. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. You know, when I was growing up, coming up as a guitar player, you didn't have access to the amount of information that you have now. I mean, I'm talking all the way through the early days of my career into my 40s. You didn't have, into my 50s, you didn't have that kind of information. And so these kids get this really high tech access to techniques right off the bat. And then back when we were growing up, as soon as we turned 12 or 13, it was like, get your ass out there, start mowing lawns, start doing shit. And so time to practice was really limited.
Yes.
You know, and so I wasn't one of these guys who was able to come home from school and just sit in my
shred all day
at night. You know, it was like, get out and, you know, I had a job at 14.
Same here.
I was mowing lawns at 12. So you know, and now a lot of parents, you know, their kids come home from school, they go into their bedrooms and they don't interact
with people around them. I mean, there's the socialization issues are kind of massive
so a lot
now.
of these kids, you know, they've got YouTube and they have access to all this information that we didn't have, and then they sit there for eight hours a day practicing, and so they become really good really quick. And I think it's great, you know, because it's great. They're standing on the shoulders and they're doing things, and some of them, you know, some of the YouTube quote stars are starting to make some real music. I mean, oh God, what's the name of that band? Polyphia, yeah.
Tim Henson.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man, that guy, you know, well, he's a great example of that. There's a whole video of him just doing nothing but practicing since he was like 10 years old, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's all he's ever had to do, and it's all he still does. I mean, that guy never had to work at a restaurant and bust tables, you know.
Well, yeah, you look at a guy like Joe Bonamassa. There's another kind of guy that
exactly.
He had access to stuff that some of us did. When you and I started, like when I started,
you were figuring it out on a cassette, and it was bad and wrong, and you know.
Well, I also did the Mel Bay primer. You remember the Mel Bay primer? You know, and you're like, you know, that kind of stuff was how we started. We didn't have
there was
a lot of it was
truefire.com with every great player in the world. And so, you know, and you look at someone like a Tim Henson from Polyphia, that they figured out how to make the internet work for them.
Yeah.
And now they're making great music and exploring boundaries that were never even conceived of. So that's where I lean on. You know, there are certainly kids out there that will never leave their bedroom, but that's because they're never going to leave their bedroom.
Right. Right.
You know, the Polyphia guys, they took that next step. They got out of their little studio. They got into the internet world. They made it happen. And then they were creating. And there are a lot of other bands following that same path, and a lot of other artists on YouTube and stuff like that are following that same path. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah. When you did A Way You'll Never Be, you had mentioned to me once that working in Tree and doing the live thing with Tree gave you a lot of confidence to write certain songs. What do you mean by that?
Well, I was always very scared to expand. Like I was a massive Rush fan, Genesis, yes, all that stuff. But I had been so hammered in my early days to write the 4-minute song, and you know, because no one wanted to hear a 6-minute song. And Steven had no fear, and he still has no fear, right? And so being next to him and working with him in all those years gave me the confidence to expand and you know, and some of the arrangements on A Way You'll Never Be might be a bit gratuitous. And also you got to understand too, that the reason that was because I had Mark Prater and I had Sean Malone, who played really well together. So there were a lot of things in that album that like the extended parts of songs were only meant to just pull from later. And so, but they would keep playing. Mark would play something and then we'd send it to Sean, and Sean would put some shit over. It's like, well, I'm not hacking that off. Like,
Yeah.
amazing. It's like, you know, this was only meant to be in case we wanted to fly some stuff around or pull better fills from.
Right.
And it turned into these things that went on. And I was like, and so working with Steven gave me the courage to keep those wonderful things that had happened with Mark and Sean, and then play over them and bring my own element to it. And so it was working with Steven and trying to adopt the confidence that he had that allowed me to do that.
You know, you brought up Sean, which
Mhm.
unfortunately we lost Sean back in 2020. And Sean was part of a big part of another good friend of mine, Paul Masvidal,
Mhm.
his band Cynic. And I didn't bring up, I skipped it by accident, but I want to quickly go back to it, just have you comment as being in that Tampa, Sarasota, Bradenton, that area. What's the big thing that comes out of there in the late 80s? It's the death metal scene, the Florida death metal scene.
Yeah.
And you knew some of these guys. You recorded with Mark in particular, did a lot of stuff with Obituary or Executioner initially. Just give me your impressions, a 30-foot view of like that whole scene as it was coming, how you related or not related, or were in it or not in it at all. I mean, you know, because another one of my best friends is Kelly Schaefer from Atheist, and we become super close over the last 2 years. Like, we talk all the time. And I asked him about you. He's like, yeah, I never heard of him, man. So, I mean, it's a big area. It's not like everybody's going to know, but I'm just curious how that, because you had a relationship with Jim Morris and the Morris Sounds group. What did you know about, like, how linked in or not linked in were you?
I knew it was happening, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear. It wasn't the music that I listened to. And so I wasn't connected to it at all. I mean, I was working at Morris Sound on my own records at that time. So we would cross paths. There was always two studios going, you know. So you'd be in one of the rooms, and Death would be in the room next door, Cannibal Corpse, Morbid. And so I'd run across all those guys, you know. I didn't really know them the way Mark knew them, because Mark knew all of them. Sepultura, all of that stuff. He was a part of all that. Because Scotty Burns was producing that stuff, and Mark was one of the assistant engineers there. So he worked with all of them, but it didn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
So anytime it was happening, I was like, it's not my thing.
Well, they're probably looking at you going, oh, there's that hair metal dude.
And what they didn't realize is I was writing a completely different kind of music, you know. So we didn't really connect. But I was there for it. Yeah, watched it happen, you know.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because I remember having a conversation with you way back in, I don't know, 05 or something like that. We were actually talking about what's the crazy, oh God, what's his name? The guitar player that passed away.
Chucky?
No, not Chuck. The other dude, the solo guy. He was in Obituary. He had a project called Ralph.
Oh, Ralph.
Santola.
My God.
Yeah.
I knew Ralph since he was 15 years old, man.
Yeah, you knew a lot of these dudes, or at least in passing you knew them. And
I knew Ralph. Like, Ralph was a friend. We recorded Ralph many times, but when he was 15, we used to hang out in this music shop called Edwards Music with a guy named Bill Edwards. And Bill was a big supporter of Ralph's career. And we would all go in there, and Bill would let us rehearse in his music store. And Ralph was always around. So Ralph was like a friend. I mean, he wasn't like, you know, like a guy I knew in passing.
Okay.
And, you know, and it was sad because he got really into substances, and it went further and further and further. And, you know, there were times when we, you know, tried to help him out with different things. Mark really tried to help him out with some recording, and it just never went well. But we always were like, fuck it, it's Ralph. You know, you're never gonna get paid for that. It's Ralph, you know. And then he was gone.
Oh, I see.
His mother, I knew, you know, Ralph was very, you know, he was a part of our scene, man.
Killer guitar player, really killer guitar player. A lot of great musicians.
He was one of the first guys. Remember how I talked about guys that just sat and did nothing in their lives but practice?
He was one of those guys.
One of the first ones. I mean, Mark was working in a gas station. I was working in a restaurant, trying to go to school.
Yeah.
And Ralph was like 15, And I'll never forget going to his house and seeing this garage that they had closed in, put an air conditioner in. He had a Barca Lounger with and I'd never seen this before, like a Fostex 4-track that you could turn down and change the pitch and slow things down and learn it.
No way.
He had this set up and his coffee and his cigarettes, and man, that's all he did. And that's how he got so good.
Yeah.
And his mom just supported him, and I couldn't believe it. He had a car, and I'm like, how can Ralph have a car? He doesn't have a job. Because I came from that kind of world that it was like, if you didn't have a job, you didn't have a car.
Exactly. You had to go do it. You had to get your
you
shit
didn't have a
together.
job, you didn't have gas in your car. So you know, it was a different thing, man. But you know,
that's a rarity. That's a rarity what he had, because a lot of parents just didn't have that back then. But I mean, now you do see it more where kid, you know. And I was going to ask you, I guess you said your dad got to see that performance of you with PT in 2002. Were your parents always supportive? It sounded like they were pretty supportive of you throughout your life. Yeah,
always. But they didn't have resources to like just give me. Yeah. So I mean, when I was broke and on the road and living off $10 a day, you know, I couldn't call mom and dad.
Yeah,
you know, it was, you know, you'll survive, boy. You like bologna? Eat your bologna.
Pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, buddy, because that's the way it's got to be.
If they could make it to a gig, I'll never forget seeing them at 4:30 in the morning at the Button South watching us play, because they'd come down to Miami to see us play, and they weren't going to leave until we were done.
That's awesome.
And, so my parents were very supportive. And
your mom's still alive, or
no? She passed in 2012.
Okay.
And, you know, Dad had my one of my records on repeat. One of my CDs on repeat while he was in hospice, you know. So,
oh man, that's great.
They were real supporters.
Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but a couple quick things. One, where are we at right now? What are you up to? Because first of all, you are now with Vertical Horizon.
Yep.
That's the other big thing, the other big name band, which I believe you met Matt through Neil.
Yep.
Here, right?
Yeah.
And I guess we should mention that. I mean, we can't bypass that. That's a pretty big fucking thing, right? So you got to know Neil and the other guys. You've actually met. I've met Alex and Getty. Sure. I never got to meet Neil, but I did get to meet Alex and Getty. A lot of, because of the PT connection, I got through Andy and Michael Mossbach. I know he's a friend of yours. Sure. Talk a little bit about how that happened for you to get to meet those guys. As being a lifelong fan, had to be, I mean, look, dude, it had to be like a fanboy moment, although you're keeping it cool. But how did that all come about? And give us a little sense of what that was like before Neil got sick.
You know, Alex played on the Fear of a Blank Planet record, and I was the one copying his solo on Anesthetized. And, you know, I never copped it. Or, you know, it was always, do your interpretation.
Yeah,
Steve was very good about that with solos. There's only one time in the whole time in Porcupine Tree where he asked me to actually repeat his solo, and that was on I Drive the Hearse. Okay. It's the only time he ever did. And so I would kind of play that solo in the spirit of Alex as much as I could.
Right.
And Alex came to a Toronto show, and I was shitting myself.
Oh, no way. And you knew he was there or no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We met him.
He came back before or what?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, dude.
And I could see him at the soundboard through the whole night. So I was shitting myself.
Oh.
And, you know, you can never live up. So he came backstage afterwards, and he was so nice. Oh, wow, that was amazing. You did such a good job on that. And he was so kind. And we started talking, and then everyone else just kind of disappeared. And then when they were shutting down the venue, it was just me and Al talking.
Yeah.
Out onto the street, you know.
For sure.
And like, we're going to stay in touch. And I'm like, yeah, we will. And so then Michael and a guy named Brian Catterson, when I was in LA for a little bit, I was hanging out there doing some playing on a off time from Porcupine Tree. They're like, hey, look, why don't you come riding on a Sunday ride with us with Neil? But Neil, we're not going to tell Neil, because if we tell him, he won't
show up.
Yeah,
he won't go. Right.
And so I roll in, and Neil rolls in, and Neil's like, and who is this? And Michael's like, it's the guitar player from Porcupine Tree. You know, you really like that song, Sound of Music. And you know, he's a really good guy. And Catterson was there. He was the editor for Motorcyclist at the time. And he was like, look, man, he's a really good rider. He's really safe. It's going to be fun. We're going to have fun. And Neil was like, well, I'll ride till lunchtime and then I'm going to go home. And everyone was like, oh God, you know. And then Neil was like, Wes, you shall ride in front of me. I will follow you. And so for the whole morning, we're riding through the twisties, man. I got Neil Peart checking me out, making sure I'm not a jerk off, you know. And we get to lunch and he said, Wes, sit with me. And so I sat across from him and he started asking me questions about my life and, you know, and we hit it off, man. And then he said, you know, I think I'll finish the day. And so the rest of the day, he said, but Wes, now you're going to follow me. And so then I, you know, and I was very fortunate in riding because we had been riding with Becca's father, who was a beast. And he was one of these guys that, you know.
You're a Ducati guy, right? Weren't you a Ducati guy?
Yeah, I was riding Ducatis. I still do. And so I was able to keep up with Neil and just do that sort of thing. And then at the end of the ride, he gives me a big hug and he says, we are brothers. We will ride again.
That's awesome.
And then 3 weeks later, man, I got a call and it was like, hey, man, can you be in Portland tomorrow? I was like, what?
What was that for? For a ride?
Yeah. And he's like, it was Michael. And Michael was like, look, man, don't worry about the money. He's like, that's sorted. He says, can you go? Can you be at the airport at 6 a.m? And I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And because he goes, Neil wants you to ride with him from Portland to LA. And so we just took a couple of days. Yeah. And we rode from Portland down to LA. We got a ticket. Neil got me a ticket.
When was this? What year was this?
07, maybe. 07,
wow.
08, 07.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. And then every now and again I'd get a call. Hey man, can you be in and then they were playing Atlanta and Becca came up and Catterson had ridden with Becca, and Becca's a beast. She's a very fast rider, very quick, much quicker than I am. And Catterson had warned Neil. He's like, well, look, when she gets into the tight stuff, you know, don't, because she's quick, you know.
Yeah.
She knows that area and she's going to get into the tight stuff. Just let her do her thing. And Neil's like, no, that's no way, you know. And then there was a very famous picture that I have of when Neil realized it. And it's me and Becca in the distance about a half mile away. And Neil had taken his camera and just took a picture of us like disappearing around a corner.
Into a curve, yeah. Wow.
And we got to lunch that day. And he looked over at Michael and said, Michael, you're fired. Rebecca, you're hired. And
that's fucking awesome, man.
He developed this relationship with Rebecca, and she got to ride with him a few more times, and they were just, you know, he actually wrote a great story about her in one of his books that escapes me right now.
Yeah, I remember reading it. I think it was the last
writing book that he wrote.
Yeah.
And where she chased him down in the twisties, and he loved it. And then, and I'll never forget it because we had stopped at the very end. It was the end of the day, and he said, "Wes, I feel I should ask you. Felt like I was dancing with another man's wife. Is that okay?" I was like, "Yeah, you can dance."
Yeah, you're Neil Peart. You can do whatever you want, right?
And, you know, and it had got this thing where she had locked in with him in the twisties, and he describes it beautifully in his book. And that's
awesome. Well, did you know, or did you find out like everybody else did?
No, I found out right away. I was coming through town and we had planned Becca. I was playing San Francisco and LA with Marillion, and he had just found out a month or two earlier how bad it really was. And we had scheduled some time with him and his family. We were going to go to his house with our son. Mm-hmm. And the kids were going to play, and then we were going to go out on the boat and have breakfast with Michael and at the yacht club. And he was going to come to the show. And then he called me that afternoon and said, "Wes, I can't come to the show tonight, but Michael is going to have a talk with you. I'll see you tomorrow." I said, "Great. You know, I get it, Bubba. You know, I know you don't want, you know." Then Michael takes me aside and tells me, and I was devastated.
Yeah.
And then the next day we showed up, and the first thing he did was take me aside. And he said, "Did Michael speak to you?" And I was like, "He did." He goes, "Fine, then let's not talk about it." And we just enjoyed the rest of the day with the kids. And he played with the kids, and he was putting them up in the tree and on the yacht. It was just a beautiful day. And it was the last real day that I got to spend with him. You know, I got to see him a year or so before he died. I surprised him on his birthday and flew out there and got to spend a little bit of time with him. You know, that was it. And that was one of the things that I haven't really written a record since, because several things happened. You know, the Damon thing happened. My own album had sold more albums than I had ever sold, and yet there was nothing really coming out of it.
Yeah.
And then Neil got sick, and then fucking Sean was pulling shit, and I was trying to make this band work. So, you know, I had to get through all of that. Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so now I've got a new world going, you know. The Porcupine Tree thing happened, man. That was devastating, you know.
Yeah, it is. And we weren't going to get into it.
You know,
we weren't going to get into it, but I think people know. And
yeah, I mean,
let's just not go there. Anyway.
Yeah, let's just skip that. I mean, it happened. It was a surprise to me. I had been told I was going to be a part of it. And then, you know, I met Gavin for dinner, and I thought he was going to tell me the inside dope of when we were going out. And then he's like, starts telling me all this shit about keyboards and piano. And, you know, we really need, you know, we don't, you know, we want an extra piano player as well as a guitar player. And I'm like, okay, so where does this leave me? And he says, well, it doesn't, mate. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No, we're going to hire this other guy that plays piano. His name is Randy. I'm like, yeah, I know who the fuck Randy is. Yeah, I know Randy really well, actually.
Yeah.
And I've never talked to any of them since. So, you know, that was that.
It's a shame. You know, I've made my feelings known on it with the Colin interview. I'm not going to get into it any further.
We don't need to get into all that.
I mean, we move on, and you got a great gig with Matt. You got a great gig with Vertical.
Yeah, because Matt called me the same week.
No way.
Week.
That's wild. That's a little weird, actually.
Things happened that week.
Yeah.
Gavin let me know that they had made a change of course. I was told that I probably had cancer, and Matt Scannell called me and said, can you do this run with me starting in 2 weeks?
And you met Matt through Neil?
Through Neil. Actually, Neil introduced us virtually, and then Matt came to a Porcupine Tree show. We connected. We bonded instantly, and then Neil said to him, you should work with Wes someday. And he had said to me, I think you and Matt will work together one day. And that was 15 years before we ever did. So
how weird is that? He's a savant, apparently. It was. Savant, yeah. So you're doing okay. So now the Vertical thing's it's not like a constant thing, but you have a lot of flying big shows that you end up doing, right? Which is nice. So it's kind of good for you because you don't have to be living on the road.
Yeah. I mean, we got one bus run this summer. We're doing a thing with the Gem Blossoms at the end of the summer. That'll be a bus run, but we typically have been avoiding the bus run since COVID and just flying everywhere. And all over the world, we're gonna do some things in the Middle East for the military, and you know, there's things happening. So,
and it's a good gig for you. I mean, it seems like you guys have a good chemistry when you're on stage, and a good relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know them other than the one or two hits. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a little more AOR for me than I'm generally into, but good band, good dude. Apparently, I mean, he and Neil were very, very tight, I believe.
Very
right?
tight. Very close.
Yeah. What's going on with you now? Like, okay, so you're doing we'll get to the YouTube thing last. You got a YouTube channel called the Journeyman Guitarist that you just started 2 months ago?
5 weeks ago, yeah.
5 weeks ago. And it's really taken off, doing really well. I have it linked. I have all your links down there.
Thank you so much.
All your stuff. And I didn't want to get into picking apart every one of your albums because we'd be here for days.
Yeah.
But how many albums do you have out now? I think it's 8.
I think studio records I have 8. Yeah.
8, yeah. So, you know, all of them very high quality, very, very good albums. I mean, Wes writes a certain sort of song that just is a very emotionally charged. And if you watch this, if you're here now with us and you've been watching, you just saw an example, but you know, there's a lot of gold to be found there if you go digging. So do that. Those links are in the description. But what are you up to now? Are you writing an album? Do you have a backlog of material?
Yeah, I'm writing. You know, it's kind of funny, but after the Neil thing and some other personal things that happened, I kept writing the same damn song, you know, and I was like,
I do that all the time.
I can't do this, you know, lyrically, you know, musically, I've always got tons of ideas. It was lyrics. because that's where my mind was. And I had to get
Right.
through those things. And the Porcupine Tree thing, to be fair, it threw a wrench in my effing mind.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Psychic Vacuum. Appreciate that.
That's
Thank
my
you.
buddy Eric. My buddy
Thank you,
Eric.
Eric.
Good dude.
Thank you. Oh man, thank you so much. Yeah, that was one of my favorite things to play. It was really, really one of the highlights for me. And
yeah, you were in a rough place, man. I mean, when I
same damn set of lyrics, and then Sean, lost his life, and then I had a dear friend of mine named Russell that died right at the same time. And man, I kept writing the same damn songs. So all I'm going to say is I've worked through that, and now I'm not writing the same damn song anymore.
That's good to hear.
I'm writing, and then the YouTube channel was a way to I want to connect with people again. I want to be out there. There's so many fans around the world that I haven't been able to see or connect with. And I have this skill set that I'd like to share with people, and the music that I like to share with people, and stories. And so that's where the YouTube channel came in. And
you're doing a lot of cool gear type things, which you are a tried and true victim of gas. You
Absolutely.
are a gas guy.
Look
Okay.
around him,
Anybody doesn't know what gas is, we're not talking about the kind you expel from your body. We're talking about gear acquisition
syndrome.
Yeah, and we both have it, only you have a bigger budget than I do. But it's let's do some guitar stuff. One last thing to get in. Well, so any ideas? You're just recording, or are you just demoing stuff, or are you not even there?
Right now I'm demoing.
Okay.
I'm in the demo process. I'm writing and demoing, and actually Mark, my partner and drummer, just signed on as the sound man for Vertical Horizon. So we're gonna be spending a lot of time together, and hopefully over the next year I'll have an album kind of get into the can by the first quarter of next year. So
excellent. That's great news, man. And
I'm going to document some of the process on YouTube. So
that'll be fun. One quick thing to go back to with the Neil thing was back in January, which unfortunately it snowed like a bitch that day. And I didn't want to risk driving because of my illness. I didn't want to take the chance.
Sure.
You did play down in Philly at the Keswick with Mike Portnoy, Frank Bello, the Why Not band. This is your second year doing it.
Yeah.
That is and I will add that info too. I got to get it. You
have to talk about that for 1 minute. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
All right, cool. Yeah, they do a fundraiser for Cedars-Sinai cancer research in the name of Neil Peart. They did a gig back, I think it was on the 7th of January. And as I said, unfortunately, it snowed the one day it snowed around here. It snowed hard, and I didn't want to take the chance of driving down and getting stuck down there. So we didn't end up going. But and I think the tickets sold out right when I was trying to make up my mind. But long story short, Wes did a couple of tunes there. I can't remember. He'll have to tell you which songs he did. I think it was, he did Subdivisions. Maybe YYZ. I'll let him tell you. I'm not sure. Which songs did you do, Wes? I forget. Subdivisions?
Subdivisions, Limelight, and After Image.
After Image. There's a rarity.
Yeah, and it was tough, man. That was a tough one. We had Jason Bittner on drums, and you should have seen the chart he brought, man. He brought the entire drum chart for that tune because it was so complex. And the center section of that, the instrumental section, is deceivingly complex, and we really struggled with it. We almost shit canned it. As a matter of fact, when we finished sound check, the decision was made we weren't going to do it. And then, some false courage happened, and we're like, you know what? Let's just get out there and throw it down. And it went perfect. And it was
you know what that song's about, right?
Yeah.
That's about them losing Andrew McNaughton. Yeah. So big time, a big guy in the Rush world for sure.
Yeah, and it meant a lot to Michael, and Michael associates that song with, Neil. Sure. And so it was very important that we do it. And we're like, even if we suck it up, we'll get to the end of it. But we didn't. It went perfect.
Well, I saw the video. It sounded great to me, man. Yeah. I really liked the Limelight cover because that's a very deceptively tricky solo, man. To get that right with the whammy thing. Because Alex just has a very unique feel.
Man.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's that. And then again, Journeyman Guitarist. Wes is doing all kind of cool gear things and road story sort of things, and it's kind of picking up steam and doing really well. I mean, I said to you the other day when you did your last video where you kind of talked about, the whole kind of getting your head around the thing. I was like, dude, I started this thing and I had like 112 subs for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't put a lot into it, but now it's really been this long form interview seems to be catching on. A lot of people I'm getting really cool people in, like yourself. So it's very, very cool. But so everybody go check that out. And then last thing we got to do, we got to see some gear, dude. So you pulled out the ES. Your main. Now, I wanted to point out that back in Autodrive, you played a PRS, and that's it. Is that the one?
This is the one.
That's the very first. Okay, what year is that? 95?
1989.
Oh, in 89.
Yeah, I got this in the fall of 89, and it was the CEs had just come out because I couldn't afford the upper model PRS. But my friend
the McCartys, you mean the McCartys?
No, back then they didn't have McCartys. They were the 24 fret. They called them standards, I think.
Okay, is that a 24 or 22? 24, right?
24, yeah.
Right. Okay.
The 24 with a bolt-on neck.
Bolt-on. Yeah.
Yeah. The others were neck throughs, and they were about $2,000, and this was only $1,000. So
weirdly,
look at that.
It's almost the same color, but mine's I bought the SE. Now, if you remember way back, I had a custom 2210 top.
Oh yeah.
And then things got really tight for me, and unfortunately I had to get rid of it. But I'll tell you what, the SEs are not bad guitars, man.
They're amazing. No, I will do a feature on the Paul Reed Smith SEs because I think like people come up to me and they say, look, man, I want to get a guitar for my son or my kid wants it. I'm like, dude, you got to get a Paul Reed Smith SE.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in that price range that competes with them.
I agree. I mine's used. Mine's a 2017. I wanted the semi-hollow. It's just got one chamber, but I wanted that to get some different sort of tones because my main thing right now is this, man. I am loving this guitar.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I am loving the Cadillac. I know a lot of people think that shape's weird. I think it's like the coolest shape ever.
It's great shape.
Like you got the Les Paul and then you got the Explorer. I don't know what this is, but I love it. It's weird, so.
Yeah.
What else you got to show us?
Well, this is the very first one. There's actually going to be a guitar story coming out on Sunday or Monday.
Okay.
That will tell the story of this guitar.
Awesome.
And then,
what about your first Les Paul or your main Les Paul you were using?
Because I have my first one is my very first one. I don't have anymore.
Okay. No. What about the one you played with Fish? Didn't you have that, the Sunburst?
I do have that one. Yeah.
How many do you have? Should I ask?
Les Pauls, I have 5.
Well, no, guitars total.
Oh, about 20 something.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. So
nice.
This is the Blackest Eyes guitar.
It is. Okay.
So this was what I was playing with Fish. This is what I started Porcupine Tree with.
I saw that many, many times. What year?
This is an 80. Yeah.
80. Okay.
And, this was the guitar that got me the gig in Porcupine Tree.
What pickups you run in? PAFs or what?
No, they're just whatever came in the guitar, they're stock, and they sound so good that I'm like
probably PF 90s. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And then of course there's your most well-known PRS is the one behind you there.
Yeah.
Which they made you specifically your specs, I believe, right? You got the piezo in that?
Yeah, it's got the piezo. It was the piezo trem. I called Win Krozak and I said, look, I was playing the hollow body too. I'm like, man, have you guys ever done a piezo and a trem? He goes, John, I've got one sitting in my desk drawer. Why don't we make a guitar?
Nice.
Like, could it be a solid body? He goes, we've never crammed that electronics into a solid body.
Eric's all psyched. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That Les Paul was used on Blackest Eyes. That was the heavy stuff.
When did you get this? Was this around 2005?
I think it was 07.
07. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen that guitar a lot live. I actually got to play that guitar once way back when. Yeah.
So they made this for me, and I still play it. It's still my main guitar. I have some other guitars that have a lot of personal meaning because, I've had a couple friends pass away, and I've acquired guitars through their families, and I'm going to do a series in the YouTube, and it's called Guitar Stories. The first
Okay,
one,
yeah, you don't want to give too much away. I get it.
right?
What do you have over is that the Hentor Sportscaster behind you or no?
It is, yeah. So
did they give that to you to highlight, or did you buy it?
no. So they sent me the prototype, which was a plain Strat with the electronics.
Yeah.
And I played that last year at the Bubba Bash. And then so Mojo is releasing this pickup assembly,
Mm-hmm.
the Lurks assembly.
Right.
And I liked it so much when I demoed it out, because I did their demo video for them at Mojo.
Right.
And I liked it so much that I ordered one. And so they sent me one just recently, like 2 weeks ago. And I went out and bought a Strat Plus, which again is going to be another video. That's going to come out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. This whole process of me going down to Replay Guitar Exchange in Tampa and buying another guitar, and then finding out they had this Jeff Beck Strat and
retrofitting it.
Pardon?
You're retrofitting it with the Lurk pickup assembly. Then,
yeah,
right?
because if you can't afford the Godin's like $4,000.
$4, I think it is.
Yeah. You can buy this for about $400 and put it in your Strat, and it just drops in.
That's a neat idea. I'm glad you mentioned
fantastic. And you can get this through the Lurk site or the Mojo site. And so I did it and put it on a Jeff Beck Strat, and it's amazing. So,
what you still have your Bad Cats? I assume you do, right?
I don't know.
Oh, really?
When Steven decided to go to 4x12s, it was before the Fear of a Blank Planet tour. We were both rocking the little Bad Cat combos.
Yeah.
I had a Marshall head that I really wanted to use. It was actually the Marshall head we used to record Fear of a Blank Planet, and actually all the stuff. It was the Marshall head that recorded all the stuff that I did with Steven, 4 albums of stuff. And so you'll hear that head on Blank Planet, Incident, Insurgentis, and what's the other one?
Grace for Drowning.
Grace for Drowning, yeah. He wanted to go to 4x12s, and so he just bought 3 Bad Cat half stacks, and holy shit, I couldn't afford it. So I sold my Bad Cat and bought a second modded Marshall head, and then I had 2 4x12s already. So I just went to Marshall's, my old standbys, and I ran Marshall's all the way. I still do.
Oh, you ran Marshall's from those last doors?
Oh yeah, from Fear of a Blank Planet on.
Wow, I don't think I took notice of that. Wow.
Yeah, and
I usually take notice of that shit.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the video from Holland. They didn't want to fly my amp over for that shoot, so I actually used one of Steven's amps. And it was a weird thing because my amp was set up with an effects loop that really used the delays and reverbs in a different way.
Work with your pedal board, yeah.
Yeah, and so I had to adapt my pedal board to his amp, and it didn't. So it sounds great. I mean, look, it sounds great.
Yeah,
but I know how I wanted it.
I was going to say it sounds great to everybody out there,
yeah,
but not to you. You were struggling with
me.
it.
I
know how that goes.
I still listen to some parts on that thing today, like on I can't remember. Anyway, and I was like, God, the delay isn't washing like it's supposed to.
Yeah. That's another sidebar or side symptom of gas, because once you dial that sound in your hearing in your head, and then you can't get it, you go fucking crazy trying to figure out what it is and what you're missing and what got changed on the dials. And
and that whole anesthetized CD where I was doing the really effecty stuff, none of it was as effecty as I wanted it.
Yeah, well, that we won't get into your board because your boards we will be here all day. Yeah, but I imagine at some point you're probably going to do a full board run. I think you did something for Vertical, didn't you? A small one. A small one, yeah. Early days I did, and now we're using. You're using quad, right? Yeah. So I just got a quad about 2 months ago. I'm still mind blown with it. But what's your feelings on those overall? I mean, have you even tried to do anything with it, like recording wise, or are you using it as a fly-in rig solely, or what's your? I mean, I know you, and I know you love
Yeah.
analog sound, and you
Yeah.
love that air being pushed. But you know, man, let's be honest. You know, lugging around fucking 800-pound JCM 800s or carrying this in.
Yeah. That's been a game changer. I was able to get very close to the sounds that I get out on my Marshalls, and when you hear it out front, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
So,
Only you
yeah.
can as the player. That's
yeah. And out front, I sometimes forget. Like I'll hear a live recording of us, and I'm like, "Were we using Marshalls then, or was I using the quad?" And then I look
Yeah.
back and go, I'm using the quad." So
how long did you start doing that with the quads?
I started using it about a year ago.
Yeah, it's a crazy. I mean, did you try any of the others like the Fractal or the Kemper? Or did you mess around
Yeah,
with
there's
those?
another brand that I tried that I won't mention that I didn't get along with. You know,
Okay.
and I didn't need the quad.
So I think we should probably wrap because we're at 2:05, and I, you know, first of all, I want to thank you for doing this with me, Wes.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
It's so good to see you. For the crazy reputation I have as being this weirdo dude, I think you know who I am. I think you know I'm.
Well, I always have. Yeah.
And so it was like when I first asked you, I won't lie to you, I was like, man, he doesn't want to come on. Like, what the fuck's up with that? It was bugging me a little bit at first. I'm like, why? Because I thought, well, we're friends. You can trust me. But I realized at the time you probably weren't trusting anybody.
No, it wasn't that I wanted to. So I didn't want to relive it.
Right.
So it had nothing to do with you. I didn't want to talk to anyone about any of that shit. I mean, and it's my own fault. It was just business, but that kind of broke me, and I had just come out of cancer and I wasn't telling anyone. And
yeah, I didn't know about that until Doug did tell me a little bit later. Cause Doug and you, we're close and you talk a lot, and Doug and I are good friends. And, you and I keep in contact irregularly, but semi-regularly. And, it was tough because I even said to Doug, I said, man, I don't think he trusts me. And I'm like,
it wasn't that. It was, I couldn't face reliving it. I was dealing with Sean. I was dealing with Neil. I was dealing with cancer. I was dealing with losing the Porcupine Tree gig, which
overwhelming.
I couldn't take it anymore. And I didn't want to relive any of it.
You just had to step away from all of it for a while. Yeah.
And so now I'm in a much better place. And now those are experiences that were a part of my life. And now I can be a little more, I can have a little more clarity and a little more, and be a little more honest with myself about things,
No, you can be the Wes of old, the Wes of old that we all kind of know.
Yeah. And it happens. I mean, there are times in people's lives where they're just overwhelmed with things. And that was, man, when Sean,
I didn't know you guys were that close. I didn't realize you were that tight.
Check out the song "She Said No" on my very first record. It's him playing bass. That's how far we go back.
Oh, damn, dude. I did not realize that.
Oh, yeah. He makes appearances on and off through my whole career because he would disappear, man. He'd be in town and wanting to work, and then he'd disappear. And him and I did a tour in Europe together in '94. We played all over France, and, just him and I as a duo.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, there's a recording of that. It's called "Waiting for the Sun to Shine in Paris." Is me, him, and Mark Kelly.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh man, I know. And that's such a,
so, that was a 20+ year relationship. And then at the very end, he'd gotten very weird and disappeared and
mental illness, man. It's
and then he was gone,
So mental illness is a rough thing, and it's very hard to open up and share that because it's still a very stigmatized thing, even though it's ridiculously common, sadly. I mean, it's just out there everywhere. And
I just shut down. So, it
wasn't fully understandable. And I'm super glad we were able to do this because, you're a tremendous musician.
Thank you.
More than that, you're a really good guy. And that's what's more important than anything. And when you leave here, there will be a body of work, your artistic work. But I think it's how you step away as a human being.
Yeah.
There's far more lasting and far more important to your children, your family, to the people around you that know you. If you leave and you're an asshole, just not a good way to go, man. And you're not that guy. And so it's just great that I was able to reconnect and have you on here. Anything you want to throw out there to wrap things up at all with?
No, just join me on the YouTube channel, man. It's my only way into the space now. So, and if you hear Vertical Horizon, whether you like the music or not, just come through and say hi to me, man. You know, just reach out to
Wes,
Facebook, you know.
Wes is that guy that if unless he's got like he's beeline and he has to be, hey, I got to go. He's that guy that will stop, shake your hand, say thank you, talk to you, and be very, you're one of those guys that are super gracious for the life that you have.
I am. I've had a gifted life, and if someone wants to share and participate in that music, I want to. You know.
By the way, I'll have it known right here now. I actually roadied for Wes one time in Philadelphia at the Tin Angel, I think it was called.
Yeah,
Wes played a little one-man show upstairs there, and I think you were doing the lily pad suite, I think.
Could be, yeah.
So that would have been 2009, and unfortunately my ex-fiance and we were there.
Yeah.
Wes is carrying all this shit, and I'm like, dude, let me help you, man. You were there with your dog. Your dog was with you.
Yep, Sear was with me. Yep,
in your pickup truck, and I'm like, let me help you down these stairs, because it was a bitch, man. That was like that PRS combo amp was not light, man.
No, that was 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you still owe me. You still owe me for that.
Oh yeah. Next time I'm passing through, man.
Yeah, you buy me a cup of coffee, maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe. But, all right, hang on one sec, Wes. We'll wrap here. I just want to say goodbye to you behind, and everybody that joined in. Thank you. We had 12 people at one point in time. It's the middle of the day. It's the middle of the morning, really. So it's hard to get people to jump on. A lot of people are working. Yeah. The evening people over in Europe, they'll catch us later. But I think this one will do well as it goes along. And want to thank everybody for popping in here and the questions, and Tom and Eric and and Issa and all you guys. Thank you. And remember, Sunday afternoon, I've got the guys we're going from Wes to the guys from Skeletal Remains.
Awesome.
So you know me, dude. I just still do like the death metal and the heavy metal. That's this stuff. But actually, when you knew me back then, I had no hair.
Yeah.
I was Mr. Buzzcut all the time. But anyways, the Skeletal Remain guys are coming on Tuesday, and Eric from the chat and I are doing the remainder of the Jethro Tull. Doug is in the chat too. Doug, sorry, man. Forgot you were in there. We're doing the rest of the Jethro Tull leftovers from the box sets as a deep dive. And then next week, I've got Tom Draper and his band, his other band. He's in two bands, Hands of Goro. They're putting their album out on March 8th.
Cool.
I forget the damn name of the album. I'm sorry, Tom. My apologies. So we're going to have the entire band. And then on Friday, I have the legendary Mark Zonder of Fate's Warning and Warlord. If you guys go back to the early 80s, crazy good band from the 80s, Warlord. So I've got him on. And then lots more, man. There's a lot more I'm working on. So hang on, Wes. See y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
There we go, bud.